Good morning. I'm glad everybody got a seat. I'm Councilmember Margaret Chin, Chair of the Committee on Aging, the Department for the Aging, or DFDA, served nearly 30 senior center sites. These senior centers to older adults, including meals, health management resources, programming, and socialization. According to the National Council on Aging, seniors who attend centers experience improvement in their social, mental, and economic well-being. Study also shows that seniors who attend senior centers learn to manage and even postpone the beginning of chronic illness. With such benefits, it is vital that our senior centers are financially equipped to support their older adult participants. Sadly, senior centers receive different amount of funding and are reimbursed at different rates, though the reason why is often unclear. Recognizing such funding disparities among senior centers, the Council successfully negotiated with the administration to add $10 million to the baseline budget to put toward right-sizing senior center budgets, beginning in FY 2018. DFDA and the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, worked together to create a model budget for senior centers. Both agencies decided to focus the model budget process on ensuring that providers have adequate funding to support programming and direct staff. Absent from such model budget, however, was funding for meals preparation, and kitchen staff. Last year, the Council Aging Committee held an oversight hearing on DFDA's senior center model budget, where the committee raised concern about DFDA's model senior center budget. Unfortunately, many of the issues we raised at the hearing remain, including the administration's failure to address food in the model budget process. Food and meals are major drivers of expense and vary greatly between providers. In order to put such discrepancy into perspective, I would like to share data from a 2018 State Controller Thomas DiNapoli's report. According to the report, while 37 senior centers were provided between $3 to $6 per congregate meal, 108 were provided between $6 to $9 per congregate meal. 71 were provided between $9 to $12 per congregate meal, and 30 were funded for $12 for more per congregate meal. These are huge gaps, and as I stated many times before, such gaps should have been addressed during the first phase of the model budget process. I'm also alarmed that the model budget did not address kitchen staff who work diligently to ensure that our seniors have meals. Furthermore, the administration is adding fuel to the fire by dragging their feet on the implementation of the model food budget process. At a March 2018 Aging Committee hearing, then DFDA Commissioner Donna Corrado testified before the committee that DFDA and a consultant, Guy House, were analyzing food service meal reimbursement and how the administration could modernize food services. The former commissioner also testified that the food service component and reimbursement for meal should be addressed in Phase 2 of the model budget process. Later, at a June 2018 Aging Committee hearing, DFDA testified that Phase 2 of the model budget process would be completed by December 2018.
It is now February 27th, and neither DFTA nor OMB have released any information on the model food budget analysis. This is unacceptable. Without immediate action, we cannot begin a process to provide desperately needed support to senior center kitchen staff workers who have been left out of the model budget process and deserve a living wage. Many senior centers and service providers have shared stories that attest to the critical role that kitchen staff play in their center's success and their seniors' health and well-being. Many kitchen staff often have to balance several hats, serving as not only the cook, but also the food delivery driver and even dishwasher. One kitchen service manager at a senior center in Midtown oversees more than 4,700 meals a week. As one Brown Center put it, they work hard to serve our community member in a safe and efficient manner. They are worthy of a living wage. A model budget process that excludes this core need is not a model budget at all. At today's hearing, the committee seeks to hear, especially when the second phase of the model budget process will be completed. The committee also seeks to learn more about the model budget food process and learn more about the model food budget analysis and process, especially the process DFTA has made, what data and information they have discovered during the analysis, if any, and how they have involved advocates in such process. I would like to thank the committee staff for helping in putting together this hearing. Our policy analyst, Kalima Johnson, counsel Nycc Pv, and finance analyst, Daniel Krupp, and finance unit head, Doheny Sapura, and my legislative director, Marian Guerra. And I'd like to thank the other member of the committee who have joined us today. We have Councilmember Drum, Councilmember Vallone, and Councilmember Eugene. Right now, I am going to ask the council staff to administer the oath to the panel from the administration.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions?
Good morning, Chairperson Chin and members of the Aging Committee. I'm Karen Resnick, Acting Commissioner for the New York City Department for the Aging. I'm joined today by Michael Bosnick, Deputy Commissioner for the Division of Planning and Technology. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony on the topic of senior center model food budgets. We're grateful for the administration's partnership with the council, championed by your leadership and advocacy, Councilwoman Chin. This collaboration has led to an increase in DFTA's annual funding by more than $90 million, representing 60% growth in the agency's city tax levy baseline budget. As a result of this investment, we implemented senior center model budgets with an additional $10 million in new baseline funds beginning in FY18 for the DFTA portfolio. We stabilized case management staffing through an infusion of $7.3 million to provide more competitive salaries, which have helped reduce high turnover rates, improved service delivery, and ensured continuity and quality of care. We've doubled DFTA's existing allocation to $8 million for caregiver programs to provide more support to caregivers and care receivers with the creativity and flexibility they need to address these services. We expanded multidisciplinary teams comprised of professionals from adult protective services, law enforcement, medical centers, financial institutions, and community-based organizations through a $1.5 million increase in baseline funding. These teams were established in all 5 boroughs, strengthening the city's ability to address complex elder abuse cases in a coordinated fashion. And we committed an additional $3.2 million increase in DFDA's baseline budget to focus on geriatric mental health as part of the suite of groundbreaking initiatives under Thrive NYC, including one program that embeds mental health practitioners in senior centers across the city, and another program that combats social isolation among homebound older adults. As the largest area agency on aging in the nation, DFDA currently funds senior centers at 249 sites across the 5 boroughs at approximately $150 million annually, serving about 173,000 older New Yorkers in FY18. Senior centers provide meals at no cost to seniors, though modest contributions are accepted and are completely voluntary, and an environment where older New Yorkers can participate in a variety of recreational, health promotional, and cultural activities, as well as receive counseling on social services and obtain assistance with benefits. Each day, 25,000 older adults receive meals at senior centers, and another 5,000 participate in activities without taking a meal. All DFDA-sponsored senior centers serve food that meets city and state nutritional standards, and meals that are culturally relevant to program participants are available citywide. The majority of senior centers cook on site. Some programs cater, and other centers prepare meals for other programs. Kosher meal programs are available at senior centers in all 5 boroughs. A number of senior centers in Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens serve meals that are culturally appropriate to their Chinese constituents, including senior centers in Chairperson Chin's district. In Queens, Korean Community Services of Metropolitan New York provides Korean meals at the DFDA Senior Center they operate in Flushing in Councilmember Vallone's district, as well as at another site in Corona. In the Bronx, several senior centers serve Spanish and Latin American fare as the preference of their constituents. Other senior centers offer Indian, Italian, Southern, and Caribbean meals to meet constituents' needs. Through cultural sharing and exchanges enriched by educational programming and translation services, senior centers foster sensitivity and appreciation for different cultures among a diverse membership, which break down cultural barriers in centers that have undergone demographic changes. DFDA engaged Fordham University to conduct an analysis of the impact of participation in senior center activities on the overall health and well-being of older New Yorkers. The study followed older adults who were participants in senior centers, as well as older adults who had not participated in a senior center for at least 1 year. Findings indicated that senior center members are achieving positive outcomes. Senior center participants reported improved physical and mental health, increased participation in health programs, frequent exercising, and positive behavior change in monitoring weight and keeping physically active. Participation in a senior center also helped to reduce social isolation. The older adult population served by senior centers are among those with the lowest incomes, the fewest resources, the poorest health, the greatest social isolation, and the most need for services. The findings of this study indicate that senior centers are attracting this group that has multiple needs, and senior center members experience improved physical and mental health, not only in the time period after joining a senior center, but maintain or even continue to improve even 1 year later. This is a very important finding, given the decline in health and social activity in this age group, especially among those with low incomes. Maintenance of health and social activity rather than a decline is a major benefit of senior centers. In June 2018, DFDA discussed the senior center model budget process before this committee. We stated that the overarching goal of the initiative is twofold: to increase resources to ensure strong programming across the network of 249 senior centers, and to increase equity among centers by making more uniform the level of financial support provided to each of them. In line with the broader vision of promoting fairness and equity, the administration added $10 million in new baseline funds for the senior center portfolio starting in FY18. This significant investment in the DFDA network was designed to help create parity in our senior center budgets and provide adequate funding to achieve an expanded array of programming across the senior center system. DFTA and the Mayor's Office of Management and Budget, with input from our network providers and other stakeholders, conducted a thorough analysis of the existing line item budgets and spending patterns across our portfolio of 249 senior centers. As a result, we identified several characteristics that exemplify high-quality programs, highlighting strong leadership and staff, as well as a rich array of health and education programming. We then compared existing budgets to the funding patterns that support the key attributes of high-quality programs and calculated the need for each center based on where their current budgets compare to the model. The model budget reflects that every center needs adequate funding to provide threshold levels of quality programming and to pay competitive wages to attract and retain high-quality staff. The network of 249 senior centers was divided into 5 groups based on average daily participants, in recognition of the fact that there are certain costs that vary based on the size of a center, such as the need for modestly more staff to run a very large center compared to a very small one. At the same time, the model accounts for certain fixed costs for running a center, irrespective of average daily participants. The resulting amounts given to each center were divided between an amount for program staff and another for programming based on each center's areas of need. However, funding remained flexible across line items within certain parameters, thus allowing centers to identify their most critical needs and submit proposals accordingly. We are pleased to report that a large number of providers have told us that the infusion of funding given to them has made a marked difference in the levels, types, and quality of programming they can offer. Various centers have used the funds to right-size salaries and bring on board one or more new staff members to expand and enrich programming. At this time, we're engaged in the second and final phase of the model budget process, centered on food and related staff costs. DFTA is working with stakeholders and with OMB to determine the amount of funding needed for food purchase and for adequate members of food staff receiving competitive salaries in order to provide high-quality meals with cultural diversity throughout the senior center network. Though their major focus is on home-delivered meals, we've also engaged Guidehouse, formerly PricewaterhouseCoopers, public sector practice, to provide additional support to DFTA and OMB's analysis. I would like to summarize the progress to date. DFTA has been seeking stakeholder input concerning food and food costs and held a focus group with providers this past January. We've received invaluable information and insights from umbrella organizations involved in aging services, as well as seniors who attend senior centers. According to the focus group discussion, senior centers take pride in their ability to deliver quality, diverse food. New York City has one of the most diverse populations in the country, as well as some of the highest food prices nationally. These programs help older New Yorkers stay engaged in their communities and offer a place where they feel at home. In relation to food service, centers also face challenges related to staffing, facilities, menu planning, and reporting. We've worked with Guidehouse to collect information concerning food and related staff costs, efficiencies, innovations, and practices in other large cities so that we can learn from their successes and challenges. In New York City, challenges include differing perspectives on what meals should be served, increased expectations among older adults, resulting in shopping around for the best meal and programming, balancing generational preferences regarding food, as older seniors prefer more traditional congregate meals, and younger generations focus more on nutrition, and varied food costs across the system. Staff from our agency and from OMB visited and did outreach to senior centers to engage directors, other staff, and attendees about their food programs, including what works well and what needs to be improved and how to achieve those improvements. The centers are of varied sizes and are located in different boroughs. Some serve meals prepared on-site and others serve catered meals. The sites include Brookdale Senior Center in Councilmember Eugene's district, KCS Flushing Senior Center in Councilman Vallone's district, and West Brighton Senior Center in Councilmember Rose's district. Similar to the Phase 1 Senior Center model budget work, DIFT has been working with OMB on an extensive data analysis to determine what constitutes adequate funding levels for purchasing and preparing food, as well as adequate salaries for hiring and retaining qualified food-related staff. In this analysis, we're comparing the cost of preparing regular meals and kosher meals, controlling for the size of the centers, and looking at centers cooking in their own kitchen versus those using caterers. Through this multifaceted approach to learning about food programming, we'll attain results that will allow us to ensure that dollars are expended wisely and effectively, while at the same time, senior centers are given flexibility to structure their programs in a way that can best meet the needs of their communities and the desires of seniors opting for a meal. We're working with OMB on this analysis and expect to have results to share later this spring. Thank you again for this opportunity to provide testimony on senior center model food budgets. I look forward to our continued efforts together to address the needs of older New Yorkers. I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your testimony. I'm going to have Councilmember Vallone starts with questions.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Lots here. Lots that we've talked about over the last 5 years, and thank you to the advocates and all our seniors that are out there. Thank you for always coming to our hearings. Margaret and I draw our strength from you, as does Danny and all the rest of us. Today there's also speaking about a budget on Thrive NYC's tremendous $850 million budget. And I know you mentioned that there is a portion of some additional mental health funding going towards DIFTA or somehow allocated in this. My question is there coordination or additional funding from Thrive that's coming to DIFTA for senior services?
We're really going to address that at our budget hearing, which is coming up in just a few weeks. But yes, we did get additional resources through Thrive NYC.
Are any of those resources allocated for this topic, for additional funding for meals and senior center allocations?
No, those are specifically, I believe, for mental health services. It would not be part of this Phase 2 of the model budget.
Well, that might be something that we can look into. I think DIFTA is always challenged by how much you have to do, and the budget that our chair is always fighting to increase, because it's just obviously no matter what we put in is not enough with the amount of seniors that are aging. I think we need to use that interagency approach to alleviate the burdens, as you always go from this capital expenses, expenditures, allocations for meals. A list keeps on going, and it keeps falling to DIFTA to pick up. And I think there's funding there. We need to fight for our share of that. The local law 140 that Margaret and I passed last year is really what brought us to this, because in past hearings, we kept asking for the data, and one of those examples of how much insurmountable data there is that DIFTA has to provide for us. So we passed Local Law 140 requiring DIFTA to break down this information. I think you started to give it to us, but you didn't flush it all out. You were saying that the 249 senior centers divided into 5 groups, but then that was it. So how is that? I mean, in order for us to properly dig down into the allocation to the centers, how they're using that funding, and what funding they receive, especially with the additional 10 million baseline, but maybe you can help us on that.
So thank you for Local Law 140. It took us a great deal of time to gather and collect all of that data. And it is available. We have shared it with the council. And I can walk you through a little bit of what's in there, and a great deal of what we're talking about today has all of that raw data available, and so you can get a sense of the scope and the depth and how much raw data there is for us to analyze.
I think that's critical for us to see how the 5 groups are broken down, even just to start the conversation and how you're separating that with the data so we can move forward with that.
So just to give you a quick summary, in Local Law 140, what we reported out are the total annual reimbursed expenditures for congregate meals, the total annual reimbursed expenditures for congregate meals that are disaggregated by kosher and non-kosher, the cost per meal for each of the 249 senior centers, the cost per meal for each senior center, disaggregated by kosher and non-kosher, and the method by which the senior center provides congregate meals, either in-house preparation or catered meals, and whether the senior center provides meals for any other senior center.
Karen, you just went through the next 5 questions, so if you can break
So
down.
it's
that's
all
exactly
there.
And you know that's supposed to be publicly listed
Yes,
also.
and it is.
Is it?
Yes, you
Okay.
can find it on DFTA's website.
That's important. All right, so then continue, because those are the categories that really we're focusing on the different type of the ethnic meals, the preparation meal costs, the staffing of the costs, the contracts that are being provided, like you mentioned with KCS and some of the other providers that are out there.
I mean, there are a few more things that I can mention,
Go ahead.
but there's kind of endless tabs and data, so I can't walk you through
Well, I think
all
those
of
were the
it.
main categories. I think maybe take it from there.
There's also the combined total cost per person for information and assistance and for ed and rec and health promotion and the description of services in each area, the percentage of service utilization based on actual units of service versus the planned units of service in information and assistance, ed rec and health promotion, the total number of employees, full-time and part-time, and the total budget and amount for personnel services.
So what's the
really-
next step with that data now? Are we going to take a look at some of the larger senior centers and some of the smaller ones and some of the differencing in cost needs for them, especially when it comes to food preparation? Because some of them are doing their own meals. some of them-
Exactly. It's an extremely diverse field. And we knew that, but, having now spent time visiting centers, speaking with participants, we get a greater sense of not only the diversity, but that people who cook prefer cooking, many that cater prefer catering. So we need to take all of that into consideration, and that all impacts costs.
So I know our chair is going to delve into that, as is Councilmember Drum, but what do you see then as the next step with that data? For us, we're trying to fight to get those additional costs, because obviously each meal costs different and has different expenses. Obviously, whether it's kosher or halal or Asian or Korean or Chinese, there's additional costs that are not being subsidized or reimbursed for that, and it's usually falling on either the senior or the senior center. With this data coming in, is there going to be any different approach to how those expenses are being allocated?
I don't know that we're there yet. We're continuing the analysis, so I can't comment on what the outcome will be. But similar to the model budget process, I think we're going to come up with a model and then try and get everybody in the model.
Will be this year's budget? Is that going to be part of what we're fighting for coming up, or are we talking
We
about all of it?
expect to be able to conclude the analysis by late spring,
Well,
and then we will share it with you.
is that also going to be in coordination with Phase 2's data?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was referring to Phase 2
Well,
data.
this is all kind of...
Yes, it's all interrelated, yes.
So it's hard for us today to delve into data that's coming in the spring, but some of the things that are absent that the chair mentioned in her opening statement was costs for preparation for meals and staff, food and meals as expense, having varying costs and an increased cost, and ones we just mentioned about ethnic meals. The preparation for meals and staffing, how are we going to address those additional costs?
As I mentioned, Local Law 140 does have a lot of that data, so you can begin to look at it.
Well, it may have the data, but then we need to fund what the data is telling us to do. So are we planning on taking that data and increasing the costs for the additional staff? I mean, that's one of the things we're always looking for, is the staffing budget, the overhead costs at a the underlying focus of the 140 and what Chair and I have been always is the tremendous burden of the overhead costs of any senior center. These are all parts and components of that. So meals are just one segment of that, but if we can get them additional assistance for the different layers of the costs, that's where this data will be used so helpful to show parity at the centers, to show the fight for the also increase. So I give you the opportunity then to say, will that be part of the budget ask as we move forward from budget to final budget conversations and discussions? Because it's been an annual ask, an increase to meet those average rise of costs, because there hasn't been an increase in the cost of meal in years, and the right cost is. So this data is, I believe, just going to reflect that. It's just going to confirm that. So for you as the acting commissioner, we want to make sure that you're going to get that increase by advocating for it and telling us what you think is the next plan for DFTA to tackle that. God bless you. There's a lot of sneezing today.
So as I mentioned earlier, the overarching goal of our whole model budget initiative, including phase 2, is to increase resources and to ensure strong programming and services across the whole network and to create parity and equity. And that's what we're driving toward.
Do you have a goal for creating parity and equity as to a budget number? What would get us to parity and equity for our senior centers? Because we all want that.
Yes. And so it's a shared goal and a shared vision, and until we have concluded the analysis, we will share it with you at that time.
Well, we will always continue the fight with you, not against you, because that's what we're trying to do. So,
I
Chair,
appreciate that.
Chair Chin, I'll gladly turn it to you, to your hearing. And come back.
Councilmember Drum, do you have any question? Yes.
Thank you very much, and I do have to leave shortly, too, so I appreciate the opportunity. I heard in your testimony that you mentioned that some centers are serving Indian food. Can you tell me where?
In Queens, India House serves Indian meals.
And how is that financed?
I'm trying to get to specific information about specific programs. I believe it's largely through discretionary funding.
Through discretionary, right. So actually, it's not coming through the DFTA budget, and I think we really need to focus on that, and not just Indian, but all South Asian foods.
Yes.
My understanding with India Home is that it doesn't operate on a daily basis and that they move the centers around, and then I believe that they cater in most of the food. So I would really urge that we look at that, because there's an increasing population of South Asian folks coming into the communities, and they're not quite as highly populated in certain areas where, a specific senior center is actually offering that as a main option for them. And because that's not the case, I don't see them like even in centers like in Jackson Heights and Elmhurst. So they don't really have any opportunity to get meals except for the times when, and I applaud India Home for the work that they're doing, but they don't have an opportunity unless it's the day that India
Right.
Home is operating a program somewhere near. And oftentimes it's not even like Jackson Heights. It might be Sunnyside that they have to travel to, which is then hard for the seniors to travel to as well. So I think we really have to address this growing community.
Thank you. We're taking that into consideration.
Okay, I hope it's in the plan, and as Councilmember Vallone as advocated, and as Councilmember Chair Margaret Chin, who's been a champion on food issues, especially for our seniors in budget negotiations. We look forward to hearing that at the budget hearings, and then certainly going into the executive budget as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Drum, you are our finance chair. We're counting on
That's
you.
why I'm talking. That's why I'm talking about
Yes,
the budget.
yes, we're
we
counting
need to
on-
have that in the budget from the mayor's
That's
side.
right. And I think from the commissioner's testimony, it doesn't sound like, and it better not be, that you're going to be able to put the money in phase 2 before the budget is passed. Because I didn't see anything in the preliminary budget. The understanding was there was supposed to be at least another 10 million for FY 20
Wasn't that 20?
in this year,
It was 21.
right?
It's for FY21 for phase 1, the additional $10 million.
as far as I remember, when we did the year of the senior in 2017, there was only a gap of 1 year in terms of the baseline. So that's why we're looking at the food component,
18, and that's based
that money needs to be in this year's budget.
So the first infusion of 10 million was in 18, and that's baselined going forward. And then the second 10 million was for FY21.
We
No?
don't agree with you on that.
Okay.
All right, because the budget was negotiated in in 2017, and it started in 2018. The first 10 million, which took a while to get out, right? And I think that part of it was that center that got the extra funding. Some of them were allowed to spend it on other things, like a one-shot special needs
Yes.
or whatever. How many of those DFTA center that came back to you and said that they want to use that extra money to cover, food costs or food service staff?
It was a small number, about 12 or so, that came back and asked to use it for other staff or services. And our budget director handled each of those requests, and we did allow for some one-time expenditures if there was a piece of equipment that needed to be replaced.
So you don't know how many came back specifically to?
About a dozen. 12.
12 that asked to use it to supplement for their food budget or food service staff. Okay, but at the same time, though, we thought that with the model budget, the money that the council allocate for senior center enhancement, DFTA asked us to maintain that pot because the center still needs it. So I just assume a lot of the center use that money to cover either the food costs or staff costs because they say they still need that money. But some of the center that I was looking at the chart, the analysis, they got more money from the model budget. So in reality, they shouldn't need that extra funding from the city council unless they have to use that money for their food budget and the food service staff.
I can't comment on that, but
I mean, if she has data she wants to share.
yes.
Take a look.
I mean, if you have data you'd like to share with us, we would certainly take a look at it.
Well, just the list of all the senior center that we fund through the enhancement. In last year's budget negotiation, our council staff were told that DFTA say, oh, we still need it for these centers. So going forward, I think my question is like, look, the model budget is supposed to take care of their needs, but the council still have to supplement. And because the food part is not taken care of.
So that's the expectation and the goal through the Phase 2 food portion is to be able to address that and create some parity and
And that's why I
equity
think
across the
with the
system.
Phase 2, the money needs to be in this year's budget. And it didn't make it to the preliminary, but it needs to be in the executive budget. Whoever's here from the administration, you got to hear that loud and clear.
Thank you. I do hear you. Loud.
Well, I'm
and
talking
clear.
about people who are
We know you.
representing
We
City
all
Hall
hear
too.
you.
Aaron, you always use.
Oh, I mean, like this. Well, the center is going to testify later, and the advocates. But like, enough already. We've been waiting. I know that it takes time to do analysis and get it together. But even basic information, the food cost goes up. Food service worker, they're not getting paid enough. Meanwhile, yes, we took care of the director, the assistant director. But the people who serve the food, we didn't take care of them. And we need to do that. And I know that you say, oh, they got a COLA increase. It's not enough. They should be paid.
And a minimum wage increase.
Yeah, minimum wage, but they should be paid more than minimum wage for what they do. And when we talked to some of the provider, the samples that they gave us from what the kitchen cook or the chef, their responsibility is much, much more than minimum wage. I mean, they have to plan the menu, shop for the food, besides cooking and making sure that everything is, nutritious, because DFTA has a lot of rules for the food. You can't put too much salt, you can't put too much sugar. There's a lot of rules and regulation that they gotta follow.
We do. There
My
are
house.
federal, state, and local regulations that we have to follow.
And meanwhile, my biggest beef about some of those other privatized places where they don't follow any of the rules. But this way,
Well, due to other legislation, now the Department of Health is going in to do
Yes.
those inspections.
yes, and it's going to start very soon.
Yes.
Thank
you.
But I think for
Even that was a battle. Remember, they were saying that wasn't our jurisdiction, it was state-run. I kept saying, anything that happens in our city, we should be able to have our hands on, and now we're getting inspectors. They didn't have the inspectors, now we're getting inspectors, but that's all part of what we find out.
so from your testimony, so what you're telling me
Yes.
is that your analysis is going to be done by late spring. So you do not foresee putting any additional funding at all for this year's budget. I mean, starting for the next fiscal year, which is FY '20.
We can't comment on the executive budget. So, no, I didn't say that, but
But you need the funding, right? You need the funding for the food part and the food service worker, right? So the money's got to come from somewhere. We
we
need
are
it.
about to embark on the budget hearing, so I think you're going to hear more on this topic.
Oh, definitely. The first day of the budget hearing,
Yes.
OMB is
I
going
know
to
I'm going to
get
be
this
back
question.
here in just a few weeks, so we will have another opportunity to have this
Well, the
conversation.
budget hearing for the Committee on Aging is on March 12th. We will be in the chambers, and the public can testify that day. But the first hearing, I think with OMB and the Finance Committee will be on March 6th.
Yeah.
And that's when we will have an opportunity to ask a question. And we'll do the same thing. Because it's critical. I mean, DFTA's budget is so minimal, it's so small, and the work that you do is so great. I mean, the senior population, it's going to be surpassing the pre-K population very, very soon. Right? And I think from your testimony, the study that you did with Fordham University, prove our case. Seniors who go to senior centers are healthier, stronger, prevent illness, serious chronic illness, saving the government a lot of money. So if we invest now, more seniors will be healthier and stronger. It just makes sense for the investment, right? And so this is what we got to push. We want our seniors to be healthy and strong. We got to make that investment, and we got to make it now. So 10 million baseline is good, but it's not enough. I mean, even that is not even enough for the centers. We want to really grow that number. And I didn't get a chance to talk to our finance chair, but I will remind him that India Home is not part of DFTA's 249 portfolio. India Home is funded by the City Council initiative for senior center serving immigrant population. So they're not even a DFTA funded senior center. And we have 10 of those. And hopefully DFTA will be able to pick them up in the next RFP because seniors growing, and we need more senior center, more and not less. So that is something that why we're advocating so hard to make sure that we have adequate funding so that we can increase number of centers and making sure they're well run. That's what our partnership is all about.
And I
Right.
thank you for your advocacy.
Well, based on the data you do you have the breakdown of how many senior centers came back to DFTA asking for additional food or meal staff reimbursements and what those costs would be to get them back out of the red?
I mentioned that earlier, that it was about a dozen programs that did come specifically and ask for either food staff increases, and we rejected those based on waiting for the phase 2 model, but we did approve one-time expenses for people that had kitchen equipment problems.
That's another area. So if
Yeah.
there is a kitchen, if there's a machine, equipment, some of the food preparation, how do the centers get repairs? Is it all through DFTA? Is there a different capital allocation for that? Is there a different expense allocation?
Generally, the process
maintenance.
is that the request is made through their program officer, and it's brought to our budget department, and we fund them as repairs are needed
Do we have a
through expense, not capital.
list of if those repairs are up to date, how long the wait list is, what the costs are for that?
Yeah, we don't have a wait list. We take care of them as the requests come in.
So DFTA is able to handle the requests as they come in? I know we've had this conversation
Yes.
also of a past hearing. It seems a bit overwhelming. Again, I'm always thinking there's too much on DFTA's plate, especially when it comes to capital and expense repairs, but, or should be at least different allocations for that. So all our kitchens are there aren't any ongoing requests for repairs, or all? I see yeses in the audience. I guess that's a good thing if you're saying yes. If on staffing, same thing. Are we, any requests for staffing increases at the centers that you're seeing, that there's because of the increase of the amount at a particular center that they're short on staff? Have those requests also come to you?
I mean, those lines are budgeted, and so we don't really get those requests.
How are they handled budget-wise? Are there different allocations for the size? I think that's part of
As we
the
went through
parity.
the model budget, there are staffing patterns that were identified, and as people needed to hire additional staff, they were able to use that funding to do that, or to give increases to existing staff.
So do we have any of that feedback? Was that enough? Is there additional staffing and/or increases that are being asked for by the centers that have come to your attention?
Maybe on a case-by-case basis, but not across the network.
And is any of that for kitchen staff? Kitchen staff, those who are actually preparing the meals.
I mean, everybody
Like my
was, asked to wait for the phase 2 of the model budget. So that's the goal of what this exercise is now.
Okay, and I'm in my last, because some of these, there's some, obviously we
Yeah.
can go each, but the way the chair has broken down the different categories, and you have, one of them is, obviously, we haven't talked too much about home-delivered meals. So can you give us an update on where we are with the home-delivered meals, if there's any RFP coming up, where we are today, and does DFTA include in the home-delivered meals fees that come up for that? So much of that the center has to, or the provider has to incur the maintenance of the vehicle, parking tickets, insurance costs, funding, staffing of those. Is any of those being considered with the home-delivered meals?
So I'd prefer to have a separate conversation about the home-delivered meals, because I think there's been a lot of conflating between the congregate food meal budget and the home-delivered meals process. But again, we're continuing to analyze and look at different models, look at all of the different models that exist in our network, and try and come up with and work with the community. And we have an RFP scheduled for,
RFI?
So our hope would be to issue some kind of an RFI in advance of a concept paper and do a tremendous amount of community engagement. As you know, it's a hot button issue. Once we talk about food in general, everybody has an opinion and a feeling about how things should move forward. So we want to make sure we collect all of that input from everybody.
Wasn't that happening now? I mean, isn't that part?
Yes.
So
But there's a.
when was the last time an RFP was issued for?
It's been quite a long time. So
I
yes,
know we were talking about.
the time has
Come.
come.
Time is come. So when do you envision the RFI prior to the RFP? Just so, the first step, just for those who may not know, there's first the collecting of the data.
Information.
before we-
It's
right, information.
to sort of get a sense of the landscape out there and what kind of thoughts and ideas
Is that ongoing now,
come
or is
from
that
the
going
community. We're doing much of that now. We've had stakeholder, we're going to roll out a whole engagement plan to make sure we get input. We're going to survey seniors themselves to get a sense of what they feel about the meals. Of course, the client's our most important customer, so that's
I would
raised
think
very
we probably
heavily.
have most of that data now, so I would think you don't, I wouldn't think there's reinventing the wheel on that one. I think we pretty much know, I think the costs of that, and phase two is a little different. So when would you envision an RFP then to be issued?
The schedule is to have an RFP.
You know, it's difficult basically. Yeah. We haven't seen an RFI.
The drum roll.
Yes.
We haven't yet decided until we complete the analysis, basically. But sometime
Next year.
within the next year.
Yeah, it's within the next year as we get all of our input and gather all the information from the community.
Well, we've respectfully heard that a few times, so I think we need to put a timeline cap on that so that we can get some type of certainty saying that the RFP will issue by, so we can all prepare for it and get that, and get our providers and our seniors know it's coming. Is there any talk of expanding the providers and the existing system that we're using to go beyond the meal providing service to a different level? Because so I know there are certain centers that do it all on their own. There are certain others that will contract that out. Are there thoughts now of expanding that for the RFP?
I mean, those are all of the things on the table that we're looking at, and we want to dialogue with the community, so that we haven't made any decisions at this point. But those are all part of the complex decision-making.
Yeah, Chair. Madam Chair, I always turn to you.
We've been joined by Councilmember Ayala. Do you have any questions?
I was trying to actually live stream in my car on the way
Oh.
here so that I could hear a little bit, but you kept breaking up, Karen.
Oh, sorry.
But I have one question. I don't want to ask questions that may have already been asked, but because we're seeing such tremendous change in communities like mine, where we now have like a Cavallo Senior Center where we have a growing Asian population of seniors. Is there some sort of overview that happens annually that better assesses what the specific needs of each center is to better accommodate new needs? Because I wonder, as we're seeing population shifts, right? We're not necessarily offering culturally relevant meals precisely anymore. We're not offering the type of programming that but all of the seniors benefit from. And so I just wonder, because by 2030 we're expected to have this senior boom, right? And how are we kind of accommodating for that now?
So, one, we work with all of our providers to make sure they are, to the best of their ability, providing culturally relevant meals and programs. And I think across the network, we do a very good job at doing that. And we're also beginning the process. So we are heavily involved in looking at many different aspects of our whole network in doing an analysis of the demographic data that really shows us where populations of seniors are living, where new immigrant groups are coming in. We're starting to look using language as a proxy for who's living in what areas and where they're expected to be by 2030. So we can see if our centers are in the right communities and serving the right populations in a culturally sensitive way.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Before I continue with some of the other questions, for the Department of Homeless Services, they're also doing model budget and doing, but they put some money into the preliminary budget as a placeholder while they're doing the analysis. And that's what I was asking the administration, that put some money, in DFTA budget to show that you're making a commitment. They're doing it at another agency. Why couldn't DFTA do that? How come you're treated differently and those bigger agencies?
Well, I think the $10 million was the administration's commitment, and
But that was a couple of years ago where we fought for the year of the senior.
was last year. Yes.
Yeah, FY18, which is 2017. The fiscal year is also always a year later.
Yes.
That's not equal treatment,
I
right?
can't comment on that whole process because I'm not familiar with it.
Well, that's what I'm aiming at the mayor's office representative sitting here. All right? I'm not asking something that's totally, off the wall, whatever. Hey, another agency did that, okay? They put money in there as a commitment. So why couldn't we do that for DFTA? The question we have about the food analysis is that you have this consultant Guy House. What is the total value of the Guy House contract? And over, what is the scope of work that they're getting paid for? And milestone that they're supposed to agree to?
So the Guidehouse consultancy is really strictly focused on home delivered meals, and the food service analysis we're currently engaged with is really with OMB, and they did some data analysis to help inform that partnership with us and OMB as we move forward.
So they're not doing the analysis for the congregate meal?
No.
So is that contract completed already?
No, I believe they're expected to be continuing that consultancy through.
I think there's a separate contract for contract meals. There's one contract
Yeah.
that's for home delivered meals, and it's extending for another several months. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, so the contract for home delivered meals extends for another few months.
Okay. Now, so they're not doing congregate meal?
No.
It's OMB is doing it. All right.
DFTA.
DFTA and OMB. In your testimony, you talked about the Fordham University study.
Yes.
Which is terrific. Now, does Guy House, would they have done an analysis to provide a dollar estimate on how much the city saved on services like hospital, psychiatric ward, nursing home, emergency food, when it invests an additional dollar into nutrition or health services at senior center?
No, that was not part of the scope of service.
So they didn't do that.
No,
Well, it would be interesting
it is interesting.
to, DFTA should look into that, to make a strong case that every dollar that the city invests in our senior center save us how much money. We could definitely use that data. I mean, it's in the study, but it needs to be translated into dollar values.
Yes, we've been interested in doing it.
We've long been interested in doing that, and I believe some of the universities have begun to engage or have certainly talked about doing that kind of analysis.
Have there been any kind of
We'll
analysis?
talk to our colleagues at Brookdale Center on Aging and others that do this kind of analysis and see if any of that's available.
Okay, if not, then maybe
Yes.
DIFTA should take it on to prove your case that senior centers is so important because it's helping to save the administration, the city
I
money.
think the Fordham study is a seminal study in that way, that it's the first time we had some concrete evidence. I mean, we know anecdotally that we all believe that we're doing good work that saves healthcare dollars, but that was our first evidence, and we would love to do a deeper dive and see if we can do that kind of analysis or work with institutions that are doing that.
Good, we'll follow up on that. Looking at the range of reimbursement that you have for food costs, does that take into consideration the salary, like the average salary of kitchen staff, or you just assume that everybody should be paid minimum wage and that's it? I mean, are there like different salary range or average salaries for the?
I mean, what the
kitchen
data shows, and you can see that in the Local Law 140 report, is that there is a great range in salaries that are paid. So I think part of the phase 2 exercise is to look at some modeling so that there can be more equity and parity across the system,
So
similar
it-
to the phase 1 model budget process.
So the meal reimbursement money actually includes food costs, food preparation, the staff that take care of the food part. Does it also include maintenance if they cook? Did they prepare food in their own kitchen? Does that increase? I mean, does that include maintenance for their kitchen to be able to do
All the
repair on
cooking,
time?
prep, and everything that goes into the cost of actually producing a meal.
It's included in that meal reimbursement, and that's why there's such a range of difference.
Exactly.
Okay. Are you hearing from centers that they're, and do you have any data on kitchen staff turnover from the providers?
I think, do you want to answer that
Well,
from our,
We heard anecdotally.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned as we're going to do now a survey to actually ask all the centers precisely about turnover as well.
yeah, we've heard this anecdotally, I'm sure, as you have, and in our site visits that OMB accompanied us on, we did hear that anecdotally as well from staff at the centers that we visited.
So we've decided to survey the whole system now.
I'm going to survey the whole system to get a better sense of that.
I mean, that's why it's so important to make sure that the money is in this year's budget to start taking care of the food service, staff salary and making sure that we can maintain good food service staff at the senior center. I mean, if they're not paid well, some of them are going to leave. And also, they rely on a lot of volunteers. That's not even added to the cost. There's so many volunteers that help serve the food and all that. So all we're paying for is really the people who are in charge. We just got to have the money in this year's budget. There's no way out on that one. Do you get a lot of requests from centers about their repairs for kitchen equipments?
We get recurring requests for kitchen equipment.
And you have a budget line that take care of that?
We don't have a separate budget line, but as we have the funding available, I'm looking at my budget director over here, we are able to cover those costs. Yes.
So do you know for last year, for FY19, how much money did you spend on emergency repair, kitchen equipment repair?
I'm sure we'd have to go back and get that analysis for you, but we can.
Yeah, if you could provide that.
can do that,
And
sure.
like, you can't, I mean, you gotta have some dedicated resource for that because things happen. I mean, like those repair needs to be done. I mean, that's the same. It goes back to the hearing that we had about the capital budget. That DIFTA also need to have a capital budget.
We make those repairs with expense money, actually.
And you just accrue money, and so you use that money to do this kind of emergency repairs.
I mean, that's one of the ways we're able to finance it, yes. But most of these would not be capital eligible. We went through that at our last hearing.
Yes, we did. So I'm not gonna drill down. Okay. So I know we talk offline about the 38 centers that are not included in the model budget. Are they included in your food service analysis?
All of the data about those are included in the report we issued for Local Law 140. So you can look at the meal costs and the utilization and the budgets in those programs.
But then they are sort of like separated out from your 249. I mean, we're not even talking about NORCs and all the other good programs that are around. But we also have to kind of come up with some solution what to do with them, and how do we make sure that the programs can continue to run or expand and get the support that they need instead of being left out of this model budget process.
Right. Not all of the 38 serve food, and as we discussed, we're happy to have that conversation with you offline, and we'll do a little more analysis about those programs.
Okay. When was the last time that DIFTA funded a baseline increase for meals across all the senior centers and home delivered meal? And what was that increase?
FY15, I believe, there was an across-the-board increase in the reimbursement rate for food, and I believe at that time we also did a differential for kosher meals for the first time.
FY15, so that was 2014. That was like almost 5 years ago. How much was that increase?
Yeah, 25 cents a meal, and I think 50 for kosher, and for home delivered kosher.
25 cents increase? Cost of living. I mean, food price goes up. I think that's where the urgency is. I mean, the centers are hurting. I mean, they need the relief as quickly as possible. I mean, the advocates will tell us again that we are below the national average in terms of the food reimbursement. Because even though we are only asking seniors to make a contribution, but that contribution has increased. And some of the centers are forced to increase the food contribution to make up, for the lack of revenue. So that's why, I want to say it again, got to put some money in this year's budget now.
Chair, did we get any information on the 38 Nycc senior centers? Because they wasn't included in phase one. Are they going to be re-included?
Well, that was the
That's
38
what
that
we're
I
just
was talking about.
Okay.
We're going to have a separate conversation about them.
Okay. Separate count.
All right, let's-
Well, one of Nycc alone, I think, is something.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There were
Another
subset
area
of those
to
38.
tackle sister agencies for budget. As the Nycc budget's increasing with the crisis that's happening with Nycc, I believe this should be part of that. I think there's ways for us to include ourselves, whether it's Thrive, whether it's Nycc. I think anytime there's a senior involved, there should be an allocation from those billions that are being allocated to assist DIFTA in these. And I think that's part of one of the areas we can fight for.
Okay.
Okay, I think any other question we did not get a chance to ask, we will send it over to you.
Happy to respond.
Yes, and thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate our partnership.
We do too. But we just want to be loud and clear this year that we're not going to take anything less. They've got to put more money into the budget for DFTA, right? So thank you for testifying, and we are going to start the public session.
I need some more chairs up there.
Can I clap?
Quiet, quiet.
Yeah.
Oh, there are more chairs up here.
Have a good day.
Okay, we're calling up the next panel. Abigail Pick from UJA Federation, Molly Kukowski from JASA, Andrea Chiafani from Live On New York, and Tara Klein from United Neighborhood Houses.
You were all hiding behind the pillar. That's why I couldn't see. You're all right behind the pillar. God bless you.
On behalf of UJA Federation of New York and our network of nonprofit partners, thank you, Chairperson Chin and members of the Aging Committee for the opportunity to submit testimony on the importance of supporting New York City's older adults. My name is Abby Pick, and I manage the anti-poverty portfolio at UJA Federation New York. Established more than 100 years ago, UJA is one of the nation's largest local philanthropies. UJA's mission is to fight poverty, connect people to community, and respond to crises both locally and globally. UJA thanks the City Council and Chairperson Chin for securing baseline funding from DFTA in FY18, specifically around model budgets for senior centers. Despite a noted increased rate of food insecurity among older adults, funding for meals, equipment, and kitchen staff at senior centers has not been included in these model budgets. Additionally, New York City-funded congregate meals are reimbursed at a rate that's 20% lower than the national average. And senior centers in our network have reported running out of food for weekend and holiday meals. We therefore urge the Council to work with the administration to invest an additional $20 million for congregate meals. Similarly, home-delivered meals, and in particular kosher home-delivered meals, which on average are 30% more expensive than a non-kosher meal, are reimbursed at lower than national average as well, presenting a unique challenge for our agencies who provide services to clients who keep kosher. We therefore request that an infusion of $15 million to support home-delivered meals be included in the FY20 budget as well. While food insecurity rates among most New Yorkers have declined, rates among older adults have increased. As many as 1 in 4 seniors living at home are nutritionally at risk. UJA Federation New York respectfully urges your consideration and support of these vital programs that assist our city's most vulnerable. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairwoman Chin, council members of the Aging Committee. Thank you so much for holding this important hearing today. I'm Andrea Cianfrani. I'm the Director of Public Policy at Live On New York. We're a nonprofit membership organization of about 100 community-based organizations serving seniors throughout New York City, and we're really happy to be here today to talk about this important issue. I do want to start out by thanking the council for your steadfast support over the years, over the decades of senior services throughout New York City. It's critical, and we know that you are very supportive of these issues. I do also want to acknowledge and thank the leadership at DFTA and Acting Commissioner Resnick for her work and increasing stakeholder input throughout these processes over the past several months and looking forward as she has testified today. I do want to focus my testimony today in 2 areas. First is fairness. We support the spirit of New York City being the fairest big city in America, but fairness does not have an age cutoff. We really believe that when DFTA is receiving less than 1% of the city budget, budget and senior meals are funded at 20% below the national average, we can do better. New York City needs to be a fair city for all ages, and we fully support initiatives and smart policy that will get us there, and we can do this. The second is focused around smart investments. Chairwoman Chin, you raised a great point earlier about the dollars invested in senior services and what that saves and what that goes to, and we fully agree, and we think that that's really important as part of all of these conversations. We also know we're aware of the headlines in this fiscal year with PEGs, but we believe in good times and in not so good times that investing in senior services is smart fiscal policy. It's responsible, and the money that is invested in senior services stretches across the community. It supports seniors. It supports the services that they use, that we will all use, the infrastructure we're building for New York City as we all age, and really importantly, it supports the individuals who have chosen their profession of serving older adults through nonprofits and senior services. So, again, we really want to support smart investment in city services, and we know that senior services is top of that list for turning a dollar and stretching it across to build our communities. So how do we get there? How do we make New York City a fair city for all ages? I'm glad you asked. We have several recommendations fully outlined in our testimony, but we really want to focus today, and you'll hear a lot more in our budget testimony, but really want to focus on congregate meals and home-delivered meals today. So first is investing $20 million in congregate meals. You've heard a lot about phases, model budgets. I just want to clarify the first investment was a total of $20 million promised in model senior center budgets. As you know, $10 million of that went out to centers late last year, and that was directed towards senior center staff and programs. That is great. It's a very important first step. The second $10 million of that is promised by FY21. So those are two really important things to keep in mind, because that money should, and we advocate should go out immediately. The needs are there, and we know that can happen. So that's a total of $20 million. Again, that, as you heard today, was directed at direct staff and programs. Very important. That said, we made those initial investments. We started rebuilding the house. We forgot to add the kitchen. The kitchen is very important. So that is what we're talking about when we're talking about a second $20 million today. We are advocating for a $20 million investment this year in congregate meals. So that would cover raw food costs. You heard today the rising cost of food. The last time there was a increase, that would go to senior centers to increase those meal costs that increase over time. It would support the staff, who are incredible. I know there's variation across the system, but we can figure that out. We can put that towards senior centers that are of all sizes and need different staffing needs. If you all know, because you visit your senior centers, you walk in. I walked into a senior center a couple weeks ago. I was stopped before I even got in the door, and they talked to me about the incredible kitchen staff and the food. And you all hear that too. So you're going to hear about it, good, bad, everything in between. And it's the heart and soul of a senior center, and it's what we need to invest in. So that would go to staff, and as well as the mandates that you heard that are needed to run a kitchen, HVAC systems, ovens, equipment, things that break down, things that need to be serviced. So those are really important costs that this funding would go to, that is needed immediately. Secondly, and again, I want to highlight that those needs are exacerbated at Nycc senior centers, and the important work building communities there that we need to invest in, that Councilmember Vallone referenced as well. The other pieces we're advocating for, home delivered meals, a $15 million increase as well to address increased need, and again, 20% below the national average. We need to do better. We're also advocating, we'll talk about this at the budget hearing, but the PEGs, across the board PEGs for all agencies. For a agency such as small as DFTA, it's unfair to kind of put that there, and we really believe that DFTA should not receive PEGs. Pushing out the $10 million that was promised immediately, we advocate for that. And again, the last thing I'll say, and Acting Commissioner Resnick referenced the increased transparency and involvement in the senior center network in these discussions, and we agree with that, and we think it's really important, and we hope that continues and increases, because we know that their input is valuable to these conversations as we build the city forward and prepare for the upcoming RFPs. So with that, I just thank you for hearing this and investing in senior services. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chairwoman Chin, for holding today's hearing and the council members for being here and participating in this very important hearing today. My name is Tara Klein, and I'm a policy analyst at United Neighborhood Houses, which is the membership association of settlement houses in New York City. We serve all ages, multiple services. Across our services for older adults, we operate 41 senior centers. Our members operate 41 senior centers and 8 home-delivered meal programs. So as Andrea just mentioned, we are supporting an increase for $20 million put into senior center congregate meal programs this year, as well as $15 million into the home delivered meals program, for a total of $35 million in new investments in this year's budget. Meal programs are so critical for older adults, and good nutrition is a key determinant of health outcomes as people age. But unfortunately, hunger among older adults in New York City remains high, with approximately 11% of New York City residents over age 60 experiencing food insecurity. And that's even higher in the Bronx, where about 24% of older residents experience food insecurity. And access to congregate and home delivered meal programs are a key part of the strategy to reduce that food insecurity. Unfortunately, providers face major barriers in serving meals to seniors in those programs due to cost and low reimbursement rates from DFTA. As we've heard, the true meal costs for programs include raw food, disposables, supplies, kitchen maintenance, equipment, emergency repairs, exterminations, inspections, and staff. And for home delivered meals, they also include vehicle maintenance, gas, heating, cooling systems, and parking costs and tickets, as well as the OTPS and the indirect and the rent and the utilities and the human resources, all of that. And DFTA contracts don't cover the full cost of providing meals, making it difficult for providers to run effective programs that adequately support their populations. Organizations will often incur deficits to meet the needs of their communities and ensure seniors receive meals. Daily attendance at senior centers tend to fluctuate, which also has an impact. One UNH member has said that they are contracted to provide 65 daily lunches at their center, but regularly provide over 90 due to increased attendance, and yet they're not reimbursed by DFTA for those additional incurred costs. There's an outside impact, as we've heard, on programs that serve culturally appropriate or relevant meals or therapeutic meals, as they often cost more. And according to Hunger Free America's most recent annual report, 34% of food pantries and kitchens in New York City were forced to turn people away, reduce their portion sizes, or limit their hours of operation due to a lack of resources. This is a real systemic problem. We've heard about the national average cost of meals and meal reimbursements, and we know that New York City is 20% below that rate. We know that the cost of living is also higher in New York City, inflating these numbers that are out there even more. We know that the cost of food has increased every year. I want to mention that the council gave us some support, and last year in fiscal year 19 added $2.84 million to the home delivered meal program, which helped bring reimbursement rates up a little bit. But unfortunately, it wasn't baselined and it wasn't included in the preliminary budget. And so that is very important. And again, the model budget, we're very appreciative of that $20 million. And we agree that extra $10 million that was promised by 2021 is needed urgently right now. Let's put it in. And so all of these numbers, I think, offer some really clear justification on the need for additional funding, but there are also, of course, stories behind these numbers and the seniors who get the food, and especially the kitchen staff who provide the meals. And I want to talk a little bit about what we've been hearing on the ground from some of our members on kitchen staff. They work very hard at very low pay. They're expected to do more than just prepare and serve food. Kitchen staff are really administrators. They complete inventory, order supplies, and create menus that cover nutritional requirements. Many supervise volunteers who help run the kitchens, and there's other mandatory paperwork. At the same time, many of these cooks lack administrative job skills or don't have a high school diploma, or many can't read in English. And programs fill this need by having their directors and other staff fill in on an ad hoc basis. Cooks must also be customer service representatives, of course, to serve the meals and keep the senior center attendees happy. While some senior centers have several staff members in the kitchen to share these responsibilities, small centers often just have one cook running the entire kitchen. If that cook is out sick or is taking personal time off, there's no substitute. The senior center director will often fill in, and they're not a cook. For kitchens that prepare both congregate and home delivered meals, staff often cook 3 meals a day and will work more than 12-hour days. And programs have expressed having to make a difficult financial choice between hiring more staff for low pay or overworking their existing staff. Meal programs in the UNH network report paying kitchen staff around the minimum wage, with raises only given when DFTA provides funding for a COLA or the minimum wage increase, as we heard. One UNH member expressed anger over feeling forced to reinforce poverty due to these low reimbursement rates and the consequential low salaries. This low pay has led to high turnover rates, with many staff opting to work at higher paying institutions like schools and colleges or at restaurants. And some UNH programs mentioned recent turnover at restaurants due to an uptick in fears of deportation for undocumented immigrants working in those restaurants. Hiring is very difficult, and one program reported a job posting for an assistant cook that went unfilled for 6 months. So this is just a little bit of what we're hearing on the ground, and we really need that additional investment. I also wanted to echo what we just heard from Andrea about the PEG, and we understand it's a difficult city budget year. We understand those constraints, but it's very urgent that DFTA do not face any cuts under the PEG. The system has been underfunded for many years, and only recently we've been pushing these new initiatives and working to get more funding into the system. We really can't afford to lose pace, especially with the new RFPs coming out for home delivered meals in senior centers soon. So to reiterate, we want to make sure that we meet the nutritional needs of New York's growing older adult population, support a decently paid workforce, and reiterate that ensure that programs are paid for the true cost of running meal programs, and that will include that $20 million for congregate meals, $15 million for home delivered meals, as well as the $10 million in Promise Model budget money. So thank you for your time, and happy to answer any questions.
Hi, good morning. My name is Molly Krakowski. I'm Director of Legislative Affairs at JASA. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, Chairman Chin and members of the committee. JASA for the last 50 years has provided a whole range of senior services, one of which is 22 senior centers that we currently are operating. Of those 22 senior centers, we have 1 in Manhattan, 8 in the Bronx, 9 in Brooklyn, 4 in Queens. Each center is unique. They vary in size, demographics, and programs. The senior centers are inviting setting. They have very diverse communities in which they're based, and they offer a whole range of activities, health, wellness, and culturally appropriate meals. We're pleased to have the opportunity to address the meals specifically today. I'm not going to talk specifically about home-delivered meals, although I do want to just reiterate what my colleagues have said, because we do provide home-delivered meals, kosher home-delivered meals, which have taken a huge hit, and we've faced a tremendous deficit over the years, and the council has actually stepped in with speaker funding for the last few years to help fill some of that deficit, but that shouldn't be the system that we incur debt and then try and get councilmatic monies to patch it up. But I'm going to focus on the congregate meals. DFTA senior centers operate with different reimbursement rates, as we heard earlier today. There was a study in 2017, Separate but Unequal, which was an analysis of the disparities in the New York City senior center funding that was done by Union Settlement, and it showed that of the approximate 250 DFTA senior centers, there was a wide range of how much their per meal reimbursement rates were, from $3 to $6 to $18 on the top end. All of JASA's 22 senior centers fall into that $3 to $6 range. In addition, as we heard earlier, there's that additional expense for providing culturally appropriate kosher meals. And of our 22 senior centers, 3 centers provide a kosher meal option. 13 are exclusively kosher centers. Funding has not kept pace with the growing expense, not with non-kosher meals, not with kosher meals. And our vendors are asking for increases, which frankly are completely reasonable, but we just don't have the money to do it. The senior center contracts don't cover the full cost of the meal. The underfunding of services impacts on meal quality, and we know from the people who come and eat those meals that they say that it 100% impacts whether or not they utilize a center. In January, JASA participated in a roundtable discussion with other aging service providers in DFTA. I think the acting commissioner referenced that she's been meeting with community providers. The meeting provided an opportunity to share concerns about congregate meal services, envision new possibilities going forward, and we explored alternate models in meal service delivery and flexibility as ways to increase utilization and appeal to individuals who have different eating habits. You know, we're always trying to find ways to get more people into the center. Well, what if there was a salad bar? What if we had vegan options? What if there were later evening hours instead of the traditional 11:30, 12 o'clock meal? All of those types of areas were discussed, as was the dining experience. A lot of our centers are not the most inviting, exciting looking physically spaces that you want to go into. And what could we do to get better lighting and really increase the appeal of the facilities? But there was general agreement that all of those types of improvements and flexibility require an investment of money, and it's costly. And so JAS is joining with the other aging advocates in proposing a minimum investment of $20 million in baseline funding for DFTA congregate meals. The funding would bring meal costs closer to the national average. It would allow senior centers to operate with adequate funding for food service delivery, staffing, and provide enhanced experience to participants. I want to just touch on, phase one of the senior center model budget helped to begin address the salary inequity for some staff and insufficient and varying funding across DFTA contracts. But unfortunately, not all DFTA contracted senior centers were included in that initial evaluation. The first round of funding for the model budget only included senior centers that received DFTA contracts through the 2012 senior center RFP. So what that means is that senior centers that were originally funded by city council members and then were baselined into the New York City budget are not included in that initial evaluation in phase one. So there were 38 senior centers, which included those initially baseline funding centers through the city council, as well as Nycc social clubs and that's more or less everybody. They were not even included in that evaluation. So they received no money for staff increases. They received no money for their programming. And now we're on to phase two, where I believe that they're not being looked at either because they're not considered part of that 249 initial RFP 2012 category. And so I'm concerned, JAS is concerned that DFTA revisit phase one centers that were not included in that initial evaluation to make sure that they're all brought up to speed. They have most of them have the same requirements. All of them have almost identical requirements as any other DFTA senior center. And I say almost all of them because I believe social clubs fall into a slightly different category. But we need them to be evaluated. We have senior center directors who've been working for 20 plus years who are making significantly less now than their peers at other senior centers only because of how the senior center was initially funded. They're all baseline DFTA senior centers. Finally, as the city tightens funding this year, we ask that DFTA not be subject to any pegs. The agency is already less than half of 1% of the budget, and any cut to DFTA is going to have a disproportionately negative effect on the community-based aging services network's ability to meet the needs of New York's growing and diverse population of older adults. So I thank you, and I thank you for really calling attention and pushing on what's going on with this model budget funding.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. We will follow up with DFTA on the 38 centers and make sure that that they're taken care of.
And thank you. Before you go, so much of what we do is such a big help from the superwomen at that table. So we really appreciate that. And a lot of the questions and the hearings that we focus on come from these conversations. And it's amazing how much all of it is connected. When you were talking about if the meal's not what it's supposed to be, then they won't even come for the services at the senior center. And then now the meals at 11:30, 12, but then, God forbid, Accessoride and all the wonders of that wonderful program, and getting seniors too, and then just one after another. And if you have to pull funding from that to take away from programming, and then the programming is a court. So that's why Chair Chin is always fighting for an overall increase on the budget, because every area needs to be increased. And so much of this is part from the administration's plan. That's why we have to keep the pressure up for the funding for this critical thing. So thank you for all your testimony.
We have also been joined by Councilmember Deutsch and Councilmember Trigger. Do you have any questions or comments? Oh, Councilmember Trigger.
Thank you, Chair Chin, once again, for your outstanding leadership in drawing attention to these very pressing issues. I just wanted a quick commentary and agree with the points raised by our great champions for seniors with regards to how DFTA's budget is small compared to many other of our city agencies and departments, and so any potential PEG will have a disproportionate impact on our most vulnerable populations, which we can't afford. And also, to the chair's credit, she's been drawing attention to the fact that with the continued emergence and growth of these social adult daycares, it becomes even that much more pressing that we stand by and stick by our senior centers and our senior providers, because it's now becoming a very pressing, almost an emergency situation in terms of just maintaining, staying afloat to provide critical services to our seniors. So I want to thank all of you for drawing attention to this, for your work, and I could assure you that our chair will not allow really anything to hurt our seniors. So thank you all for your great advocacy and leadership. Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Traeger, because we have strong committee members, and our committee has grown. So we're definitely going to get more council member to join us in this fight for more funding. Councilmember Deutsch?
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I just have like 3 hearings in the same time, and I just got a 4th one just came up. But I just want to, first of all, commend our chair, who does an amazing, amazing job advocating for our seniors, and that also goes with all the advocates and all the people that are here today. But I just wanted to give a little statement and just to say that as we see the advocates and sitting in the room, you don't have to wait for a hearing to bring up any issues that you have. So, because there's so many things going on, and when you bring up like 10 or 15 things that are being discussed at a hearing, it becomes kind of mixed messages, not really mixed messages, but confusing. And also, it's very difficult to do 15 things to make sure we get done on all those issues. So if we have anything like even before a hearing or after a hearing, to bring these issues to your elected officials, and this way we could tackle it as they come and deal with it because sometimes with dealing with agencies, there's just so much red tape and bureaucracy that we need to, it takes a lot more than a hearing to fight for certain issues that come up at an aging hearing. So I just want to encourage anyone that when you do have, any things that you want to be addressed, so let's tackle it one at a time, and this way we could get the results that we need. And also working with the Department of Aging, we have a very good relationship with them, with Karen Resnick. So a lot of it has to do beyond her. It has to do with the budget, and this is something we need to tackle. So I just want to say thank you again because I'm sure you're here. You're not getting paid for being here, but an hour of the week. So it's very important for us that you're all here today and taking of your time and to address many of the issues that affect our seniors. So thank you.
Councilmember Deutsch, we continue to strategize with our advocates, and especially this year. So we're going to be calling on you to help us too. We wanted to see if you have some data in terms of your members, the providers in the center that you run, in terms of the overcosts for the food, like you're running a deficit. Like it would be good if we can get some data in terms of which centers are running a deficit, because of the food costs not being covered. Because sometimes at the end of the fiscal year, they go to DFTA, then DFTA somehow finds some money, or they let the council know that, we need your continued support with discretionary funding to cover that. Because I think the administration baseline a portion of it last year. But still, the council initiative is still over $2 million.
I think that's a great question. I think the point raised today about the information that is now available online, which we all are taking a look at closely, that's a really good starting point to know where we're starting, and then looking at what the council has funded over time through initiatives, as well as talking with our members. I think that's something we can work on together to help provide information on.
That would be great.
Especially since we didn't get any. It would be good. This way we can get some from you.
I just
Molly,
wanted
what
to say
is
one
the
of
base?
yeah. Well,
As you mentioned,
it's a range. So, but I could get it to you. I could get you the actual numbers. But I did want to mention that when you asked the question of the acting commissioner about the number of centers that requested money specifically for food, to be careful. I think it's maybe a drop misleading in this sense that the budgets were all submitted. They had to be resubmitted multiple times. There were things that were not allowed to be asked for. So I don't think that the fact that 12 eventually ended up getting funding or pleading for funding for food-related expenses necessarily translates into the fact that all of those centers and sites wouldn't have or didn't initially include requests for funding related to food, staff, and concerns. That's my political way of saying. I think it's a little bit trickier than that. I mean, we eventually submitted budgets that we knew were within the guides of what we needed to submit, and certainly needed that funding to go towards. And we're very grateful for the funding that we received for the centers that received the funding.
Yeah, and I'd agree. I think the overarching goal of the model budget process is to promote fairness across the system and to kind of provide infrastructure building across the entire system. And as Molly pointed out, those adding into that the 38 centers that weren't even evaluated. So I think, and I know that there was a push to get funding out the door quicker than probably would have been like to have been, would have liked to take more time. But I think, especially in this next phase, I think that's a really important point to look at, to make sure that all centers that are receiving funding have information, that they know what they can do with the funding. Because I think you're right. I think, the idea was that it was to be directed towards staff and programming. And, that's what most were told and thought. And going back later and trying to negotiate, I think a lot of, centers would have liked that flexibility, but, we understand the time constraints. But I think in the spirit of fairness across the system, I'm hoping that we can, do that, in a broader way, and especially with the round with meals here. So I think that's a good point.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your advocacy, and thank you for coming to testify today. Oh, Councilmember Rose. That's okay. Well, Sand Island did get a mention earlier. Yes.
Let's hear for Staten Island.
Okay, we have Rocky Chin from AARP, Brenda Gardner, AARP, and yourself. Polling Ing from the CPC Open Door Senior Center. Anybody else? Oh, that's the.
They're all from Hamilton Madison House. And there's three of them.
Okay.
So
Oh, okay.
we just call them all last.
Oh, okay. Okay, keep again.
Good afternoon. Do I persist? Good afternoon. I'm here representing ARP, and I'm really happy that we're having this discussion. It's an ongoing discussion, and my colleague and the staff member, Chris Bridello, who's over there, can also help me answer questions if you have any. I'm going to cut our testimony a little bit because we're running over, but it was excellent running over because we really appreciate the robust advocacy of our chairperson of the City Council committee here on aging, but also all the committee members. We really, really do want to appreciate the partnership that we have. ARP, my name is Rocky Chin. I'm a member of the ARP Executive Council for New York State. You should know that we have members upstate today as well and all this week advocating for 50 plus. On behalf of our over 800,000 members age 50 and older in New York City, I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk about congregate and home delivered meals in New York City. And just echoing, ARP wants to just echo the concerns and the needs of the advocates that have come before and that are going to speak today from the senior centers about the need to increase the funding for congregate and home delivered meals. So I'm going to just focus on the highlight the demographic need. I think you've mentioned this many times before, but it's worth mentioning again. Why we need to do better in the area of nutrition for older adults in New York City. Today, ARP, in partnership with the Center for an Urban Future, will release a new detailed brief about the aging of the population in cities and counties across New York State. Our analysis finds that older adults are the fastest growing segment of the population statewide. Over the past decade, the number of New Yorkers aged 65 and over increased by 647,000 or 26%. And during the same period, the state's overall populations grew by just 3%. There are now more New Yorkers aged 65 and older statewide than there are children under the age of 13. I have included a few maps at the end of the printed testimony to illustrate the aging trend in New York City for those 65 plus and 85 plus. And there's actually an extra map there that we printed. Additionally, this older population is much more diverse. In New York City, the older immigrant population has grown even faster, increasing 42% over the past decade. And I should just add here that ARP earlier in the year, in 2018, released a very important study working with partners addressing disparate impact on communities of color. And that's a very important initiative. So we in New York are very aware of that. Our congregate and home delivered programs are really, as has been said before, on the front line of ensuring older adults in New York City receive well-balanced meals every day, and also a key component of independence and aging in place. For some, it is often the only hot meal they will receive. Without congregate and home delivered meals, thousands of New York City residents would go hungry every day. So it is crucial, as you have said, and as you have advocated in the City Council, that New York City keep pace with increased funds associated with improving and these services and providing essential services. So we cannot continually ask our senior centers providing congregate meals and home delivered meals providers to do more with less. You have already heard from the providers about the obstacles they face every day: increased food costs, unfunded mandates on kitchens, the low wages, etc. When it comes to nutrition, New York City has made great strides to streamline the SNAP process for low-income residents across the city who meet eligibility requirements. We should take pride that in our public schools, students have access to nutritional meals free of charge. And during the summer, anyone under the age of 18 can receive free breakfast or lunch at hundreds of public schools, parks, pools, and libraries across the city. So isn't it time that New York City strive to ensure that no older adult goes without a nutritious meal? A step toward that goal is ensuring that our core programs, as we've talked about today, congregate and home delivered meal, are positioned for success, and a major part of that is adequate funding. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and we look forward to partnering with you as we come back to City Hall, as we go to the mayor's office, as we go all over the state. But we really agree with you that now is the time to really address this inequity in terms of funding for these programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, and really wanted to thank AARP for their support at our hearings. And definitely, we need you at the state. We got to get the state to deliver too. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's okay. Good afternoon, my lovely Honorable and Margaret Chan, Chair and a member of the City Council. Thank you. You give us an opportunity to, listen our voice. That means I really want you to open your heart and open your ear to listen to us and give us a hand to resolve all the problems. Today, my name is Pauline Ng. I on behalf of the Chinese American Planning Council. Also, and I am the member of the AARP. And also UNH or the settlement house, because I work. I really love to serve the senior, so that's why I stay in the senior job for the 50 years. I enjoy my life because I thinking about senior so lovely, and. But because that, I should provide wonderful quantity and quality service for our sisters and brothers. But today, I really want to talking about the budget. Otherwise, because today is the budget hearing. But I really thank you to the council. And really regarding about the model budget, relate to the food and the staff and also for the congregate Meals on Wheels. But I tell you the very good story, then you should support of Open Door. The Open Door opened our door 1972, but at the beginning we only provide the multi-social services. No Meals on Wheels, no congregate meals. Until 1979, our senior thinking about, they are very poor. They only depend on the Social Security. On that time is no SSI. How could they survive? So that's why we had a lobby and going to the Department for the Agent, fight for the congregate meal. Finally, they listened to us, give us the congregate meal since the 1979. But the 1980, I'm so happy because our former mayor, everyone knows, Mayor Koch and our former and Commissioner Senner come to Open Door for Wexit. On that time, our cook really cooked the chicken. Then our the mayor Koch smelling and said that, Pauline, could I taste? I said, definitely, you are the mayor. And then she tastes our food. Oh, such wonderful, very delicious. On that time, I said, Mayor, right now is a good time I ask you the money. Then I said that, Mayor, you are so lucky you had the chance and taste our food. But how about handicapped person? They are low income, they live alone, they stay home. Nobody take good care of them. They are the hunger. They are the lonely person. Who care of them? They said that, Pauline, what are you talking about? I said that you are very smart. I need you give me money. If you give me money, I will provide very good service to the senior. You know that Mayor Koch always make joke with me. We keep smiling and talk. And I said, on that time, Mayor Koch said that, Pauline, how could I help you? City no money. I said that, Mayor, you're very smart. You don't have money, but you know a lot of a very rich businessman and a very rich person. Why you don't ask them to donate the money? Use the money for the Meals on Wheels. On that time, Mayor Koch said, Pauline, why you that smart? You're so smart. Okay, let me start to do my job. Then he really asked the rich people and raising money. 1980, just 3 months later, we get the money. Meals on Wheels is start. Open Door is the first Meals on Wheels provider. Until right now, it's 38 years already. But I'm so happy they help me. But I am very disappointed because last year, the OMB, thank you, the city council, Margaret Chan, everyone, fight for $10,000 for the monthly budget. 249 senior center, 223 get the money, but Open Door get 0. So that's why I'm so angry. I'm so angry. I tell you, I do a great job. Without me, how could you have the Meals on Wheels program? My gosh. But right now have the Meals on Wheels program. I definitely serve the Lower East Side, Manhattan, and Lower East, a lot of poor area. They need the services. Why I cannot get one time? I'm so angry. Then Margaret Chan, very good, because we under her district. I always keep calling her. I meet her in the district. I said, Margaret, you are the chairperson. Why you visiting my center so many often? You know how we do the wonderful job. Why we cannot get any money? But they said that, Pauline, because you do a wonderful job, so that's why you cannot get any money. That's fair? No. I do a good job, so give me more money, not penalty of me. So that's why I tell you, last year, I did not get any money. I get into trouble. Because, and talking about reimbursement, Meals on Wheels. They only give us Monday through Friday, $7.17 per meal, including everything. But weekend, we deliver 7 meals a week. Weekend, Saturday and Sunday, only reimburse $3.92. $3.92. That's including personnel salary, French benefits, and health insurance. My friend, you know that, but 9-hour minimum salary is $15 an hour, but all my kitchen staff just get the $15 an hour. Someone worked for me is 42 years, still get the $15 an hour. You think that's fair? You think that's fair? 42 years, still $15. I not complain, I just sharing my problem. And the French benefits, everyone said that, why we to go to work? We want to get the Medicaid, it's better go to work. But if they go to work, the employer should concern their health insurance. You know that how much money we pay? Single, we pay about $10,000 for each employee. Most of them for family plan is pay more than $20,000 a year. May I ask you, you had a very good math. Only $3.92. How could you pay the personnel, pay the admin fee, pay the vehicle fee, and pay the vehicle insurance and maintenance and food costs, everything included? I am not the super lady. I try to be. But, last year, I shortage more than $100,000. Thank God, I keep calling, and push Margaret Chan. Margaret Chan said that, Pauline, I know you're so poor. I really want to help your poor lady. Because I not help you. I help you, that means help the needy elderly. Later on, she gave me some money. I still short of more about $40,000. But I talked to my sponsor agents. My sponsor agent said that the director responsibility. Funding agents don't give to you. The city council don't give to you. Go ahead, door to door, and ask the people and give you the money. So that's why I tell you, I know everyone very smart, special member of the AARP, because I'm one of them. So, you see, yeah, not only that, the vehicle, you know how crazy for the Chinatown and North East Side. Our driver and meal deliver meals. They had attack because we should door to door to deliver meals. When the vehicle parked in front of the building, they come down, they get a ticket. Who pay the ticket? The budget no money to pay the ticket. The first vote they said that us the driver pay by themselves. I said that. Nonsense. So that's why, how about parking?
Pauline, you got to wrap up because you got to save some of the story for the budget, the real budget hearing in March. Because I still got another panel waiting.
Right now, I'm thinking on behalf of all of you because I'm a member of the ARP. So I on behalf of all of you, you give me your time to me. And so that's why I just said that, the council person, special, all of you, you know why I come here and raising my voice. Money, money, money. No money cannot run the program. So that's why I'm sharing with you. I need the money. I need the money, provide quantity and quality services. I really want you to follow the Mayor Couch's way to do it. Listen to Pauline Ng's voice and give us the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Make sure you come back for the budget hearing on March 12th.
Thank you, Pauline. As a colleague in AARP, I'm delighted to meet you and hear you. Council Chairwoman Chin and council members of the Aging. My name is Brenda Gardner. I'm, yes, a volunteer with AARP, but what I want to just really quickly tell you is a personal anecdote about food. I'm limiting it to this. I am 74 years young, and I know that, and that's one of the reasons I'm saying it. And part of it is because I am very independent and tend to go. A lot of our older seniors are frail and need these programs. I, in 2016, had a second bout with cancer. In 2006, I had the first one, did not need services. I managed when I was younger to get through it. In 2016, I had the chemotherapy and was much weakened in terms of just getting through the illness. And my independence was, all right, don't be so proud, you need help. And through Encore Services at the at 46th Street Center, they gave me Meals on Wheels. And the volunteers who delivered daily, except for Sunday, were incredible. We got the meals for Sundays on Saturday. And it's something that it was almost a year, I think, that I stayed with. I think I stayed with it for 9 months. And then I felt I could deal with this myself again and didn't use it. But I was very frail during that time, and it really saved me. I'm just going to say it like that because it is nutritious. And so I am That's my personal anecdote that I really think it should be something that should be continued. It came out of the senior center. Since then, I think they got delivered these meals that were sent. I mean, Fresh Direct is one now that I've heard, and sometimes people say are better than the one we used. That's something that, again, it will be the cost stuff that I think we should definitely, I am for it. Thank you for listening to my anecdote.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for being here. Look at that. Yeah, look at your crowd. Okay, we have one last panel. Liu York Tim from Hamilton Madison House Center. Theodora. Oh, Sionkas? Oh, okay. From also Hamilton Madison House. And Edwin Ma. City Hall Senior Center, Hamilton Madison House.
Good afternoon. Pauline's certainly a hard act to follow. My name is Theodora Ziongas, and I'm the new Assistant Executive Director for Older Adults and Community Services at Hamilton Madison House. As you know, Hamilton Madison House was established in 1898 as a voluntary nonprofit settlement house dedicated to improving the quality of life of the residents in the Two Bridges community, Chinatown area of Manhattan's Lower East Side. We speak the many languages of the community and serve more than 8,000 children and adults annually. We've been around the community for 120 years, continually serving the needs of our residents. We want to thank the New York City Council for their continuing support of our senior programs, and especially the chair of the Aging Committee, Margaret Chin, for being such a strong advocate for older adults. I remember the year of the senior and how great strides were achieved to increase funding for seniors and caregivers in New York City, but we still have many challenges, and increased funding is critical to continue and expand the needs of the services we provide. Services provided to the seniors age 60 and over in the community comprise a large part of our program offerings. In addition to the Smith and Knickerbocker Newark programs, we operate the large City Hall Senior Center at 100 Gold Street, as well as 3 satellite senior centers. The meals provided at our senior centers are critical to the health and well-being of the seniors in our community. We are consistently oversubscribed for both the breakfast and the lunch services, creating many challenges for us as we struggle to meet the growing needs of our community, which will only increase. Over the past 5 years, we have provided over 500,000 total meals, and we which is about, close to 30,000 above what we had projected. So annually, we provide over 5% above what we are budgeted for. So we cannot continue without some additional support. Health is wealth, and our goal is to provide the support, allowing our seniors to remain as active and engaged in our communities for as long as possible with as much dignity as possible. We are facing increasing challenges in achieving our goals as prices for nutritious food increase and the number of seniors seeking our services continues to increase. So it's double whammy. The cost of raw food has risen in the past few years, yet the allocation has not. The cost of paper goods instead of styrofoam is another added expense. Although we offer many health promotion, education, recreation, and other casework and health management services, the meals are the important glue that binds all of this together. As seniors come to our centers for our nutritious meals, they will remain for our exercise programs. They socialize and create new friendships, decrease their emotional isolation, and maintain important connections to the community. They will turn to us if they have additional needs as well, since we become a trusted local resource. We cannot continue to provide the level of service we do without additional funding in the years ahead. Not only are the prices for nutritious food increasing, we are serving more individuals each year. Continuity is also vital as we struggle to maintain committed kitchen and custodial staff at our centers. That is really critical, and we've heard a lot today about minimum wage. These individuals provide vital services, and they're much more than just cooking the meals. Additional funding for cost of living increases is also essential in allowing us to do so. In our case, meeting the needs of our diverse population also requires hiring bilingual staff, which often is a challenge. And additional funding is vital to helping us maintain this very dedicated staff. And you also mentioned volunteers play a hugely vital role in helping us meet our needs. Thank you very much for this opportunity to testify. I'm also accompanied today by 13 seniors from our center, which are only representative of the many thousands that we serve and show how dedicated they are to our programs. And I'm also accompanied by 2 seniors who would like to testify, Mr. Liu and Mr. Ma. So I'd like to introduce them.
Okay, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Well, since we don't get that much more people sitting around, I make my testimony fast and quick and simple, okay? Yeah. Okay, my name is Liu Yok Tim. I'm a member and volunteer at the Hamilton Medicine House Smith Senior Center North. I attend the Senior Center every day of the week. I enjoy helping to serve lunch and host the bingo and karaoke activities. After lunch, I encourage the seniors to participate in other activities and have fun. Okay, I believe the meal program is very important to all our seniors, not just our center, to all the senior center in New York City to help us to get our nutrition. Some of the seniors are not physically fit to cook at home for themselves, so they come to our center to have lunch. As a volunteer, I feel proud to be able to help them. I hope that there will be more funding. Just cut it short, just for funding, okay? For our seniors to have good, nutritious meals and stay healthy. Thanks for the attention. That's it. That's all I want to say.
Great. That's
okay.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you. There are also people watching at home.
Oh, wait. I want to answer one question about the red lady over there. Okay, you were telling me you have chemotherapy, right? I tell you, I was a cancer patient back in 2013. I needed radiation and chemotherapy. I was supposed to die in 2013, but I made it. My surgeon, my doctor say 9 patients out of 10, they cannot survive, but I'm the last one. And this country gave me $500,000 sitting here talking to you today. So I'm proud to be a senior and try to get more funding for our seniors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're glad that you are healthy and strong and volunteering and contributing to our community.
Right, thanks.
Mr. Ma?
Thank you, Honorable Council Member Chair Committee, for this today. I have been attending this hearing so many times, but this is the first time so touching. See, hit the ground, the real active and vigorous and touch the point. The meal, you think the food is very, very common. I'm so glad, Councilman Valun, especially from him, I learned. I know you more, better than I know you in the general community. I really appreciate your leadership, your quality of leadership, your really profound understanding the need of the senior. And I'm so happy I myself, and as a senior, I have been or 10 years in the Hamilton Medical House City Hall Senior. Actually, I was volunteer 50 years ago, volunteer teaching Mandarin in the Hamilton Medical House Senior Center. So after social work school graduate, I was doing volunteer for Hamilton Medical House as a community mental health advisory board chair for almost 20 years, and then become a human rights commissioner for 6 years. Now today, as a member of City Hall Senior Center, and I myself have two things to testify. The food is so important because in the beginning, I think many years ago, I just talked with Dora, we got 6 pieces shrimps. Now we got 3. I got 3. And so shrinking, I'm so happy. And Councilman Chin and mentioned about the budget, so important. As I'm so happy you are trying to institute a system of gradually the budget increase automatically annually without request annual budget increase, food increase. Who knows? The budget increase, and that's why another thing. Now before we get shrimp once a month. Now we get 2 months. We're lucky. When the center serving the shrimp or salmon fish, you know what? 450 people used to be 300. Suddenly come. I'm surprised. How did they get the word of mouth to come people? And I regularly every day I go there. Sometimes I couldn't get the meal ticket, so I complain to them.
Can you stop 1 minute?
Yeah.
I would say Margaret will tell you that because of budget cut.
Yes.
That's why you need to get through shrimp.
Yeah. Yes. And also the second one, I used to come here after I retirement. I have my wife also get more food. I eat leftover, so I don't want to go to senior center. Now, after many years, I feel I have to go to senior center because why? For fresh food and for meeting people or getting program because getting the people. And that's why I feel I'm missing something. So I go to there to meet people, to read the 3 papers and the senior karaoke, and I'm very happy. And I feel my retirement is the best year for my life. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, Mr. Ma is the karaoke champion at City Hall Senior Center.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for being here today. And I just wanted to remind you that the budget hearing for the Committee on Aging is on March 12, 10 o'clock in the morning. And the public will be able to testify hopefully before noon. So I encourage more seniors to come and tell your story, because we wanted to get it on the record and to make sure that we'll be able to fight for more funding for senior services this year. So thank you all again for being here today.
Thank you.